کنفرانس در پارلمان نروژ، انقلاب دمکراتیک ایران، قیامی برای آزادی و دمکراسی.
سخنرانی خانم مریم رجوی، نایب رئیس پارلمان و شماری از نمایندگان، نخست وزیر سابق ایسلند، وزیر سابق محیط زیست ایسلند، وزیر پیشین حمل و نقل و ارتباطات فنلاند و تعدادی از شخصیت‌های سیاسی اروپایی. استراتژی رژیم برای مقابله با قیام دو وجه دارد. یک وجه سرکوب بیرحمانه است. وجه دیگر تلاش‌های گسترده سیاسی و تبلیغاتی برای دلسرد کردن مردم از قیام است. رژیم تاکتیک دیگری دارد که استفاده از عناصر وابسته به دیکتاتوری شاه است. وزارت اطلاعات یا سپاه پاسداران این عناصر را برای منحرف کردن قیام به خدمت می‌گیرند. اگرچه مردم ایران در 5 ماه گذشته با شعار مرگ بر ستمگر چه شاه باشه چه رهبر، در داخل و خارج کشور این توطئه را با شکست مواجه کردند.
زمان آن است که کشورهای اروپایی صدای مردم ایران را بشنوند، سپاه پاسداران را در لیست تروریستی قرار دهند، سفارت‌های رژیم را در کشورهایشان ببندند، مقاومت مردم ایران و حق آنها را برای دفاع از خود به رسمیت بشناسند.
مریم ولد، نایب رئیس پارلمان نروژ: من سالها از مبارزه شما علیه رژیم حمایت کردم و این کار را ادامه خواهیم داد.
Thank you very much. I'm grateful to be here. As you just said, I've supported your fight against this regime for years, and of course we will continue to do that. We are following the situation closely, and we see that it's you have a large challenge in this battle, and we understand, of course, that you need the full and wholehearted support from Norway, which you, of course, have. Thank you.
گیر هارده، نخست وزیر سابق ایسلند: آنچه در ایران جریان دارد فقط یک تظاهرات نیست، آغاز پایان دیکتاتوری مذهبی است.
سخنرانی‌های آریل هرمستاد، میکائیل تچنر، استران استیونسون و خانم سروناز چیتساز.
آریل هرمستاد، رهبر حزب سبزهای نروژ: بسیار مهم است ما همه راه‌های ممکن را برای کمک به مبارزه برای آزادی و دمکراسی در ایران جستجو کنیم.
میکائیل تچنر به نمایندگی از حزب محافظه‌کار: من بیانیه‌ای از طرف حزب محافظه‌کار ارائه می‌دهم. ما از مبارزات مردم ایران حمایت می‌کنیم و به دنبال استفاده از تمام ابزارهای ممکن برای رسیدن به یک ایران دموکراتیک هستیم.
استران استیونسون، هماهنگ کننده کارزار تغییر در ایران: چطور ما می توانیم با آخوندها مذاکره کنیم؟ غرب باید به جای مذاکره روی آنچه خانم رجوی میگوید متمرکز شود. سپاه پاسداران را لیست گذاری کند، سفارت‌های رژیم را ببندد و سفیرهای آنها را اخراج کند. ما باید از 10 ماده‌ای خانم رجوی حمایت کنیم.
سروناز چیتساز، مسئول کمیسیون زنان شورای ملی مقاومت: برای آخوندها سرکوب زنان مکانیزمی برای به بند کشیدن کل جامعه تحت عنوان مذهب و دین بود. از سال 1364 در 37 سال گذشته جایگاه و برابری زنان برای مقاومت ما یک موضوع کانونی بوده است.
It's very nice to see so many people here. Welcome to you all, and thank you for this initiative. After the murder of Masa Amini, we have seen an increase in the brutality of the Iranian regime, and the situation has worsened day by day. Executions and imprisonment are increasing, and these actions are taken by the regime only against people that are fighting for their right to say what they want, to organize and to fight for their basic human rights. The regime's actions are immoral, they are unacceptable, and it's a clear sign of a dictatorial regime that doesn't have the support of its own people anymore. Even though Norway and Iran has limited cooperation, economic and diplomatic contact, it is important to investigate all possible ways that we can accommodate the fight for democracy and human rights in Iran. And also, as Ola mentioned, in a situation with corresponding crisis, it is especially important that we don't forget the struggle for the Iranian people. So once again, thank you all for being here and putting your focus on this very important situation. And I look forward to an important and constructive dialogue meeting with you all today. Thank you for your attention.
In respect of the audience, it should be prepared. So also, I would just like to have a statement from the Conservative Party. We are supporting the struggle of the Iranian people, and we will seek to use all possible means to achieve the outcome of resulting in a democratic Iran, and that will also be as it was emphasized here, of importance from the security point of view in Europe in a global scale, but most of all because every people has a right to be self-governed. So the first hand, this is a matter for the Iranian people to reach the degree of democracy and self-governance, and the rest of the world will benefit from that struggle. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lars, and good morning, Madam Rejui, ladies and gentlemen. I was here a year ago, and it's a privilege to be back again. In my remarks a year ago, I predicted that 80 million Iranians suffering from destitution, poverty, oppression at the hands of the mullahs. You could see that a revolution was brewing. And that revolution was triggered last September by the brutal murder and custody by the so-called morality police of Mahsa Amini. And now we are seeing the daily results of that uprising. There is a strong rumor that there could be a massive uprising coming to coincide with Nروژ, the Iranian New Year. And we should be prepared for giving full support to the beleaguered people of Iran when that happens. As Lars said, I have published a book of dictatorship and revolution, looking back to the contemporary history of Iran to the beginning of the 20th century, when a brutal, thuggish Cossack mercenary rose through the ranks to become a king. And how he did that with the help of the mullahs. And people should not forget that. I have exposed how this happened in this book and brought it up to date. And believe me, Madam Rejui, I am prepared to add a new chapter after we get rid of this tyrannical regime. A victory chapter. But it looks in detail at the corrupt and brutal alliance, either tacit or explicit, of Iran's monarchists and the clerics. It also looks at the history of the appeasement policy that the West has pursued. The appeasement that to this day, I think I have to name and shame here the arch appeaser who is the head of the security and foreign affairs for Europe, Joseph Borrell, who is the real appeaser, because he was made coordinator of the JCPOA, the nuclear deal, and he has made it his mission to try to reintroduce, to try to raise from the dead that zombie deal that was signed into a very flawed treaty by Obama in 2015 and unilaterally torn up by Trump in 2018, who then introduced a very tough sanction regime. And Borrell is still talking about trying to end sanctions, to give a lifeline to this brutal regime in Iran, and to reintroduce the JCPOA, which was defied from the outset. It was used as an illusion, as a cover by the Iranians, while they continued to accelerate the process of developing a nuclear weapon. Even last week, we had the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Mr. Grossi, telling the European Parliament that the mullahs have dismantled 27 of the surveillance cameras in the nuclear installations so that they can accelerate the production of a nuclear weapon even faster. The only way you will stop the development of a nuclear weapon in Iran is get rid of this regime. Stop appeasing the mullahs. The West has to wake up to this. Now that we have a regime that is supplying kamikaze drones to Putin to use for killing innocent civilians in Ukraine, now that we have people being mown down in the streets of Iran by the IRGC and the thuggish Basij militia, how is it possible that we can try to negotiate or have any dialogue with the mullahs? There can be no question of resurrecting the JCPOA. It is dead in the water, and people have to recognize that. Instead, now, the West has to start concentrating on doing what Mrs. Rajavi said: blacklist the IRGC, close down our embassies in Tehran, withdraw our ambassadors, send all of their ambassadors out of our territory. They use their embassies here as bomb factories, as headquarters for assassination attempts. Get rid of them all. Say to this regime, you're a pariah regime. We are no longer prepared to have any dialogue with you. You have no mandate for governance. You have brutalized your people. And I entirely agree that we should now seek to indict Khamenei, Raisi, who himself is a murderer, even self-admitted, Zarif, Rouhani, all of the leadership of this brutal regime. They should all be indicted and held to account, either in a free Iran, in a free justice system, or in the international courts. But the appeasement has to end now, and we have to allow the people of Iran to have a freely elected democratic government introducing the 10-point plan that the extraordinary leadership of Mrs. Rajavi has exposed. It is time now to end appeasement. Thank you very much.
Dear friends, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak in this conference amongst the Norwegian and other Nordic friends. 5 months ago, with the murder of a young girl from the mullah's self-defined crime of al-Baghdadi, the people's uprising in Iran was sparked in a society which had become a powder cake and ready to explode. The whole world witnessed the role of brave women in Iran in this uprising against gender apartheid. But the reality is that this has not been a sudden phenomenon, and there is a history behind it. As a matter of fact, women played a very important role in 1979 revolution, which we are on the eve of its anniversary. But the mullahs who hijacked the leadership of the anti-monarchy revolution imposed the most vicious repression against them. For the mullahs, the suppression of women was a mechanism to shut down the whole society in the name of religion. Therefore, from the first days, women joined our movement in large number because we had a very clear position in support of women's rights. As a matter of fact, the issue of women's status and equality has been a focal point in our resistance in Iran for 37 years. One of the main achievements of Iran's main opposition, PMOI, was this generation of women were trained to take the key responsibilities in our resistance movement. More than 50% of the members of the NCRI as the resistance parliament are women. This background and the history explain how today the women of Iran are driving force of the current uprising and lead it as admitted by the regime itself. Adoption of NCRI plan on women's rights and freedom goes back to 37 years ago. Mrs. Rajavi's 10 points of plan, as Mr. Sassi has explained, which was published for the first time in 2006, emphasizes complete gender equality in the political, social, cultural, and economic rights, and equal participation of women in political leadership. Abolishment of any form of discrimination, the right of choose one's own clothing freely, and prohibition of all forms of exploitation against women or under any pretext. The NCRI plan on the separation of religion and state, which was adopted in 1985, stipulates that no citizen shall enjoy any privileges or be subject to any deprivation for the reason of belief or non-belief in a particular religion or faith. Finally, there have always been many people with advanced ideas, but those who put the advanced ideas into practice are few, because doing this requires high human capacity, dedication, tolerance, and tireless efforts. The goal of the regime is to tarnish the image of the democratic opposition and sell the lie that there is no valid alternative in Iran. And therefore, the world must tolerate this dictatorship and work with it. I have the honor of being a member of a resistance that has been able to make many of such ideas in a reality during the hard times of fighting against a brutal medieval regime, especially in the issue of women. Thank you